Now for our story. It was late afternoon. A heavy snow was falling, and the fields and meadows lay smooth and white under the thick blanket which covered them. Aunt Mary's niece, Peggy Douglas, had come out for a walk with Nicholas Dorn, the young writer to whom she's been engaged until recently, when Nicholas himself had suggested that their wedding be postponed indefinitely. Peggy was wearing a bright red coat with a scarf tied over her head. Nicholas was sporting a rather daring muffler. The two young people looked happy and carefree as they strolled along. However, Nicholas was in anything but a cheerful mood.
Isn't the air wonderful, Nick? I love wintertime anyway. Snow makes everything look so soft and peaceful.
Just like the picture on the postcard.
Oh, Nicholas, you're such a cynic.
Not a cynic, Peggy. Just a realist.
I think it amounts to practically the same thing.
Well, I'll grant that a consistent realist is likely to become somewhat cynical.
Exactly. It's a pity, too.
Why?
I just think it's too bad people have to become cynical about things. They miss so much.
Yeah, but that means they miss a lot of grief, too.
Maybe. Oh, Nick, let's not be philosophical today. I'm feeling much too cheerful. Nick, let's walk over to the little house on Kenmore Hill. We haven't been there for ages.
I'm sorry, Peggy. I'd rather not, if you don't mind.
But why? You used to love going over there. Planning all the things we could do with it.
Yeah, I know, but that was before.
Before?
Peggy, don't you see? That was when we were making plans together. Now, well, there's not much point in it.
Oh. Well, after all, it was your idea to put it off. You were the one who wanted to.
It wasn't what I wanted, Peggy. It was just that I thought it was best.
Well, it amounts to the same thing. Anyway, it's done.
Yes, it's done. So let's not talk about it anymore. At least not now.
All right, Nicholas. What shall we talk about?
Oh, anything. Just choose your subject. I'll plod along with you somehow.
Tell me about your work. Have you finished that new story?
Finished it. I haven't even got a decent opening.
But you told me about it 2 weeks ago.
I know I did. I say you can write better when you're unhappy. Afraid I've exploded that theory. I can't seem to write a line lately.
But, Nicholas, does that mean you're unhappy?
Not exactly floating on air, darling.
I'm sorry. Nicholas?
Yes, Peggy? This is going to be a leading question. I see that look in your eyes.
It is a leading question, Nicholas. What I want to know is, Nicholas, are you in love with me?
Wow, that's not only leading, that's the genuine $64 article.
I'm serious, Nicholas.
So am I, Peggy. It's just...
I know it's rather odd, my asking you such a thing. I don't usually go around asking young men whether they're in love with me. See, I feel so at ease with you, Nick. I feel as if I can say almost anything I want to, and you'll understand.
Well, I'm glad about that, darling. I want you to feel that way. But, do you mind my asking what put such a question into your head? You aren't worried because I'm in a somewhat black mood, I hope. But I forgot to tell you, I'm the moody type.
No, it isn't that. But when I was talking to Aunt Mary yesterday, something she said made me wonder.
Oh? What did Aunt Mary say?
Well, it wasn't anything she said right out. You know how Aunt Mary is.
I see.
But somehow I had the feeling she talked to you, that you'd told her something about us. Of course, I know it's a silly question. Because personally, I've always believed that Julie is the only woman you've ever really loved, or ever would love. And you've told me yourself over and over how you feel about those things now. How you hate sentimentality and emotional entanglements and so on. Oh, I guess I needn't have asked you.
You think you know the answer?
Well, isn't it true, what I said?
You just go ahead and believe what you want to, darling. That'll be much the best for all concerned.
But Nick...
No, really, Peggy. Your logic is excellent. Everything you said makes sense. Let's leave it at that, shall we?
Sometimes I think I don't understand men at all.
Poor little Peggy. Well, maybe I'm just a particularly difficult character to understand.
I don't think it's that. I used to have the same trouble with Bill sometimes.
That makes me feel better. By the way, have you seen Bill lately?
Yes, I saw him yesterday. And Mary and I went into the bank and happened to run into him.
How is he? Poor guy, I thought about him a lot lately. Really in a tough spot.
It certainly is. It's tragic, the way everything turned out for him.
Feeling pretty low, I imagine.
Yes. But as I told him, he'll gradually get his life straightened out. Probably settle down, marry someone. That'd be the best thing that could happen, so that he could make a proper home for his child.
Of course, that's asking quite a lot of any woman, isn't it?
What do you mean, Nick?
Well, to marry a man with such a young baby, ask her to bring up another woman's child. How would you feel about a setup like that?
Well, that's an impossible situation to imagine, so far as I'm concerned, Nick. Because, you see, it isn't just any child. It's Kit's child. And, well, you know how I feel about her.
Yes, I think I do.
What on earth ever made you ask?
Well, I sort of wondered about it.
Well, I couldn't possibly do it, Nick. You should know that.
Of course, there's a strong chance that Bill wouldn't get custody of the child. He took the thing into court. I believe they have to prove that the mother is unfit, something like that. It'd be pretty hard to do. Besides, from what I know of the Calverts, whether Kid is fit or not, they'd think of some way to get around it. Some loophole. Oh, but let's not talk about the Calverts, Peggy. I don't want to spoil my appetite, and at the moment, I'm starving.
So am I.
Okay, Princess, let's get back into the car and go in search of a nice thick steak. Any discussion of the Calvert clan is hereby banned till after dinner.
And so the subject of the Calverts was dismissed for the time being. But the two young people would have been very much surprised had they known that Kip Meade, who had caused Peggy so much unhappiness, was at that same moment very much disturbed. Sitting in an obscure corner of the bar at the Brown Palace Hotel, Kit had been urging Paul Cromwell to leave Wakefield that night, before he discovered that she'd broken her promise to him, that she was not suing her husband Bill Meade for a divorce. Now she leaned forward anxiously as she said,
Please, Paul, don't ask questions. Just go, will you? Will you go back to Chicago tonight?
But why tonight, Kid? Good heavens, you're certainly in a hurry to get rid of me.
Well, it isn't that, Paul. It's just that I can't stand any more complications at the moment.
Oh? Am I a complication?
You are at present, Paul. Now, will you go?
All right, Kid. Never let it be said that Paul Cromwell didn't know when he wasn't welcome.
There's a 9 o'clock train, I think.
You sound devilishly happy about it. Would you care to dine with me?
I'm sorry, Paul, but... Well, I'm afraid not.
Well, I confess I didn't think you would. Obviously, I'm not the most popular chap in your book at present.
Please don't be difficult, Paul. You surely ought to understand why.
I'm not sure I do. But enough said. I'll just have my lonely bachelor dinner right here in the hotel, and then get the 9 o'clock train. Of course, Kit, you will get in touch with me as soon as you know something definite.
Of course, Paul, of course. Well, I'd better go now. Goodbye, darling.
Not goodbye, dear. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Till we meet again. Paul sighed, looking after Kit as she hurried away. His mission hadn't been very successful. After all the months of waiting, his eagerness to see Kit, he felt very let down because he insisted on his leaving town immediately. Well, at the moment, there was nothing to do but make the best of it. Might as well go across to the coffee shop on the other side of the lobby and have a leisurely dinner until it was time to take the train back to Chicago. Chicago and Lisa Fenner. How he dreaded that prospect. Now for our story. This afternoon, Peggy Douglas, Aunt Mary's niece, and Nicholas Doran, the young writer from Hollywood, had gone for a walk in the snow. It hadn't been too much of a success, since Nicholas had been in a rather unhappy frame of mind. Nick's mood of depression had prompted Peggy to ask him, quite simply, if he were in love with her. For Peggy had gathered from Aunt Mary that possibly this had been the reason for Nicholas wanting to postpone their marriage, knowing as he did that Peggy herself had no emotional feelings toward him, but considered him merely a very good and dear friend. Nicholas, however, had evaded Peggy's questions. Finally, the two young people had decided to go in town for dinner. When they arrived at the Brown Palace Hotel, Nicholas went to his rooms to freshen up. Now, as Peggy waits for him in the lobby of the hotel, a tall, attractive man comes through the door, which opens on the little cocktail lounge adjoining the lobby. Glancing across, he sees Peggy, who looks up at the same moment. With an expression of pleased recognition, Paul Cromwell, who has just said goodbye to Kit Meade, comes over to greet Aunt Mary's niece.
Peggy Douglas.
Hello, Paul. I thought it was you, and I said to myself it just couldn't be.
Well, I hope I haven't aged so much that my old friends don't recognize me.
Oh, no. Just that I didn't expect to see you here in Wakefield.
Well, I had a yearning to see a lot of nice, empty space around me, so I
You
came to
Wakefield.
Yes.
Well, I can understand that. We specialize in lots of nice, empty space.
Very restful stuff.
Space, Paul, or empty?
Oh, both. Chicago, especially during this season, is a bit on the hurly-burly side, you know.
Yes, it is.
Well, Peggy, you're looking very lovely. In fact, you've become quite beautiful.
Paul, don't flatter me. You might turn my head.
No, I mean it. And you've grown up a lot, too.
Have I really?
Yes, you're, well, more sophisticated somehow. It becomes you, too.
That's right. You like sophisticated women, don't you, Paul?
Well, a touch of sophistication gives a woman that extra something, perhaps. But not too much, Peggy. You're just right now. Your simplicity is a very charming trait. You know, I've thought of you very often in this last year.
You have? I'm surprised, Paul.
Oh, really? I wondered how you were. Hoped you were getting along well.
Well, that's nice of you, Paul. To tell you the truth, I've thought of you sometimes, too. So many things have changed since that summer we were all here together.
Yes, you and Bill.
And you and Kit.
Funny how things get turned around, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Peggy, forgive me for... Well, I mean, I don't want to be impertinent, but
Yes, Paul.
I think you know what I'm driving at.
Perhaps I do. You're wondering how I survived Bill Meade marrying Kit. Is that it, Paul?
Well, frankly, yes. I hope you don't mind.
No, Paul. It's very natural that you'd wonder. After all, you know the way I felt about Bill. You were there.
Yes, I certainly was. Much good it did me, too.
Well, believe me, Paul, it wasn't a very pleasant period for me. Naturally, I was unhappy, but everything's much better now.
I'm glad. That's what I hoped you'd say. Because now it looks as if things may straighten out at long last for everyone.
I don't think I understand.
Well, Peggy, you've been frank with me. I might as well be frank with you.
All right, Paul, if you feel you want to be.
I do. Somehow, it seems very natural, talking things over with you. It reminds me of old times.
Yes.
You remember how we used to try to give each other moral support when things got to looking grim?
I certainly do. It's funny how time changes things. That all seems such a long time ago now. At first, when Bill married Kit, I was pretty bitter. But now, well, you get used to things, I guess.
Have you become used to things, Peggy?
Yes, I think I have, Paul. You just can't go on suffering indefinitely. All of a sudden, almost, your perspective changes. You see things differently.
Well, perhaps you're lucky then.
But, Paul, surely you're not still... I mean, isn't that pretty much what's happened to you in all this time since you and Kit and Bill and I were all together that summer?
Well, Peggy, perhaps it's different with me. Perhaps I'm not as pliable as you are. Don't bounce back as quickly. Old age setting in, maybe. No, I'm sorry to report that I haven't changed since then.
Oh. That's too bad, Paul.
Oh, I'm not weeping on your shoulder, my dear. I'm not that far gone. In fact, I've nothing to weep about at the moment. You see, That's the reason I came to Wakefield.
The reason, Paul? Now I know I don't understand.
Well, I mean, I did have a purpose in coming to Wakefield this trip.
Yes, I suppose you did.
I imagine a lot of people would be surprised to know why I'm here, but you shouldn't be. I came to see Kit.
Oh,
Kit and I had some very important things to talk over. You can probably guess what they were. You've been here. You know what's been happening.
yes.
So I should think you wouldn't be too surprised.
Well, Paul, I'm still not sure I know what you're getting at.
Peggy, have you seen much of Bill lately?
Why, yes, I see him occasionally.
How's he taking it?
Well, Paul, he's very much concerned, as you'd expect. After all,
Yes, I imagine this business has been pretty tough on him.
it has.
Well, I wouldn't worry about it.
Well, it's not my concern to worry about it, I know, but Bill and I can't help feeling sorry for him.
Oh, yes, of course. But as I told Kit, I'm sure he'll feel quite all right before long. Bill's not one to go off the deep end.
He isn't?
No, I'm sure he'll feel quite like his old self within a month or two.
I hope so.
Oh, he will, Peggy, believe me. He must realize by now that his marriage to Kit was a blunder from the beginning. He may not want to admit it, but...
Not want to admit? But, Paul, he's admitted very clearly that the marriage wasn't... that he and Kit weren't suited.
Oh, no, Peggy, you're wrong. Kit said
Well,
that...
I don't know what Kit may have said, but I've talked to Bill.
But, Peggy, if Bill's not satisfied with the marriage, why would he object to a divorce?
Did Kit tell you that?
Yes.
Paul, Bill doesn't object.
There's something awfully peculiar about all this.
Oh, I wouldn't say that exactly. It's pretty logical, isn't it? That Kit wants Bill, wants to keep him.
Now, wait a minute, Peggy. I seem to be just a wee bit confused, or else you are.
Well, I'm not. But it's not so surprising that you are. Oh, it is sort of a mess, but if you talk to Kit, I should think she would have explained how things are.
Yes. Well, you know how Kit is. She can say so much sometimes and still not reveal anything.
Still,
Peggy, if you can make things clear for me, I'd appreciate it. As it is, frankly, I am confused.
But, Paul, when you talked to Kit, didn't she tell you about the divorce? How Bill felt about it?
Yes, of course she did. It's just that I didn't get the details straight, I'm afraid.
Oh. Well, perhaps I shouldn't say this. It's just an idea of mine, but I think it might make you understand.
Sure, go ahead.
Of course, it's none of my business, but you can't help forming an opinion.
Oh, of course not. And you can trust me. Please tell me what your idea is.
Well, sometimes I've wondered. I've thought that perhaps Kit's main fear, much stronger than any love she may have for Bill, or even for her child, is a fear of losing, of being defeated.
Heaven knows she has colossal pride.
That's it, Paul. And I think that's what drives her.
You may be right, but I don't quite make the connection.
Well, it's just this, Paul. Kit would rather hang on to Bill, even if he doesn't want her, than sacrifice her pride by being defeated entirely. So that's probably why she's refused to give Bill the divorce, why she intends to fight it.
Intends to fight it? You don't really think she intends to do that?
But of course she does. That's what I'm talking about. Everybody knows that. I thought you knew that much of the story, at least.
Peggy, I'm awfully glad I ran into you today.
Peggy Douglas looked up at Paul Cromwell in bewilderment. She couldn't imagine why her words had affected him so strangely. For Paul was staring at her with the blank look of a person who had just had a tremendous shock. Now for our story. It was just about dinner time. Kit Meade came out of the little cocktail lounge in Wakefield's Brown Palace Hotel. She just said goodbye to Paul Cromwell, whose unexpected arrival in town had disturbed her very much. Now, as she guided a green roadster through the quiet streets of the little town, Kit caught glimpses of people sitting down to dinner, the parents at either end of the table, children ranged along the side, talking cheerfully, telling their experiences at school and play. These peaceful scenes were very remote to Kit. The thoughts in her mind were turbulent, disturbed.
Thank heaven I managed to talk Paul into leaving tonight. Now he won't go wandering around town, running to some busybody who'd tell him a lot of gossip. No, he'll be safely back in Chicago. I'll have time to work out some kind of a plan. If Paul had any idea I planned to fight the divorce... What a mess. I certainly made some awfully silly mistakes. If only I hadn't complicated things, taken Lisa's child. Dad would be wild if he ever found out that child isn't mine. Hate to think of what he'd do. Well, I'll have to go through with it. But at least Paul's out of the way. For the moment.
But Kit's relief would have turned to panic if she could have known what was happening at that same moment in the lobby of the Brown Palace Hotel. Paul Cromwell had accidentally encountered Peggy Douglas, whom he'd known when he was trying to persuade Kit to marry him last summer, before Kit decided she wanted Bill Meade. Paul and Peggy had talked reminiscently for a while, and then, inevitably, they'd begun to talk of Bill and Kit.
Trust me, Peggy. Please, say whatever you have on your mind.
Well, Paul, sometimes I've thought that perhaps Kit's main fear, much stronger than any love she might have for Bill, or even for her child, is a fear of losing, of being defeated.
Heaven knows Kit has colossal pride.
Yes, that's it, Paul. And I think that's what drives her.
Well, you may be right. But I don't quite see the connection.
It's just this, Paul. Kit would rather hang on to Bill, even if she didn't love him, even if he doesn't want her, than sacrifice her pride by being defeated entirely. That must be why she's refused to give Bill the divorce, why she intends to fight it.
Intends to fight it? But, Peggy, you don't think she intends to do that?
But of course she does, Paul. That's what I've been talking about. Didn't you know? You've seen Kit.
Yes, I've seen her. Oh, but I was interested in getting your viewpoint of this affair. However, let's not talk about Kit anymore. Tell me what's been happening to you.
Well, Paul, there's not much to tell about me.
Oh, come now, Peggy. I don't believe that. You've grown up to be such a lovely young woman. I'm sure lots of things must have been happening to you during this year. For instance, now that Bill's interested in getting his freedom.
Oh. Well, I do see Bill every so often, but...
Well, since I was in at the beginning, don't you think it's fair for me to wonder what the end's going to be?
It's not what the end's going to be, Paul. I'm afraid you saw the end already. Last year.
You mean when Kit and Bill were married?
Yes.
But, Peggy, if Bill's fighting for a divorce...
Now you're doing it, too.
Doing what?
Well, everybody insists on linking Bill and me together. I know Kit suspected all along that...
Kit suspects that you and Bill might get together again? Is that it?
Well, something like that. She's always been, well, jealous is the only word that quite fits, I guess. Jealous of me in regard to Bill. And it is so silly, as I told her.
Oh, you and Kit talked it over.
Yes, I saw her at the doctor's office one day. It was the day she told me there wasn't going to be a divorce.
Oh, that must have been some time ago, wasn't it?
Well, not so awfully long ago.
But, I mean, things have changed since then.
Yes, in a way. Bill made his mind up definitely. Decided to fight it out.
Well, it sounds to me as if Bill's matured a great deal this last year.
I think he has, Paul. He's more determined, sure of himself.
You must be proud of him, then.
I? Well, it's not exactly my concern. But I am glad he's found himself. I guess the fact that he's a father now has something to do with it. He's so proud of the baby.
He is, eh?
Oh, yes. And he's got it all worked out. How he'll take care of it if he gets custody.
If he gets custody? Good Lord, does he want the custody?
Oh, don't you think it's natural?
Oh, yes, I suppose so. So he's having to fight Kit all the way down the line, eh? She doesn't want to give him his freedom or the baby. That's very odd.
Odd? I'd call it tragic, Paul.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. Well, do you think Bill has a chance, Peggy?
I don't know. About the baby, well, they say a court almost always awards the child to its mother. They feel that's where a young child belongs.
Well, Peggy, I'm inclined to agree about that. A child does belong with its mother. In fact, I'd be willing to go to quite a lot of trouble, if I could, to see that the baby winds up with its mother.
Oh, you say that so strangely.
Do I?
Of course you're loyal to Kit, but even so, it seems to me the baby might be better off with Bill in the long run.
In the long run, my dear, a lot can happen. You know, somehow I've always thought of you and Bill as the right combination. You seemed so complete together in the old days.
Perhaps we were in the old days.
But not anymore. Oh, that's too bad, Peggy.
Well, everything's so different now.
Is it because of the baby?
Oh, Paul, there are a lot of things.
Peggy, would it make a difference to you if Bill and Kit were divorced and there were no child to be considered?
That's a very difficult question, Paul. And besides, what's the use of talking about it? That's a fact. There is a baby.
Yes. Yes, of course there is.
So it's silly to talk about what might have been. It is ironic, though, because I'm sure the baby didn't accomplish what Kit had hoped for.
Hoped for? What do you mean? What did Kit hope?
Well, I think when Kit came back from California with the child, she hoped the baby would save the marriage.
You do? Yes, I suppose that's logical. Of course.
It happens sometimes. Lots of times, really.
Oh, certainly. Why, there's nothing like a child to keep people together, is there? Well, Peggy, it's been wonderful talking to you, and I think I'm beginning to understand things a lot better.
Well, I only hope I haven't been talking out of turn.
Oh, no, of course you haven't. You've simply cleared up a lot of things which my talk with Kit had left rather obscure. In fact, very obscure. Now I think I know where I stand.
A few minutes later, Paul said goodnight and went upstairs to his room. As he stood by the window, he was thinking,
What a fool I've been, letting Kit pull the wool over my eyes like that. I always did wonder why she was so determined to get possession of Lisa's baby. It didn't ring true. Her explanations were so vague. But all I cared about was that she was going to get a divorce so that she and I could... And all along, Kit wanted Lisa's baby because she thought she could hang on to Bill if she gave him a son. She planned it so carefully, using me, using Lisa. No wonder she was so anxious for me to leave tonight. Wanted to get rid of me. Well, my sweet, you're going to find out that it doesn't pay to double-cross Paul Cromwell. Hello, operator. Get me Ben Calvert's number, please. Yes, that's right. Mr. Ben Calvert's home on 11th Street.
few people have ever seen Paul's face as it was now. And those who had never forgot it. In Ben Calvert's house on 11th Street, Kit Meade jumped nervously as the telephone bell jangled through the house.